Hello, everyone, and welcome to this latest live episode of VOX VOMITUS. I am your host, Jennifer Ann Gordon, the author of Pretty Ugly, as well as the Hotel series, which includes From Daylight to Madness and When the Sleeping Dead Still Talk, as well as the Japanese Box and other stories. Joining me today, as always, helmet on, it'll make sense in a few minutes, is my VOX VOMITUS vixen. It'll make sense. Those are some good air quotes. My VOX VOMITUS vixen, Allison Martine, author of the Bourbon Books, which includes, I have my inhaler here so I can say all of the titles in one breath. Dibs, Since September, Move On Melinda, Climb the Salmon Ladder, and The Ranchers Take Manhattan.
Thank you.
Otherwise known as the Bourbon Books. We are joined today by Elizabeth Holden, author of Mighty Millie Novak, which happened to come out on August 20th, which was my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday. It was his
happy book birthday.
Yeah.
Hold up the books. People can
Hold
see
up
it.
the book.
Yeah.
I know I do it too fast.
I love the cover and like
yeah,
it's an unusual cover, and I love like the little pictures that look like they come in a photo booth. Which do they even have those anymore? That I mean, I guess they do.
They do, but like definitely with a nostalgia vibe and twist. Like you know,
Oh,
look, you're doing something retro. Yeah,
yeah.
Like we're doing something old fashioned from the 90s.
Yeah. Yeah, I love how the cover turned out. I feel like it really stands out, and I feel like it has the right energy. And I had said when they asked me, like, do you have anything you want to say about what the cover should convey? And I was like, it needs to convey roller derby and gay.
Yeah,
that's what it needs, and it does.
It does. So
Yeah.
I will say this before we get to you talking about the book a little bit. When Allison said, "Oh, I'm going to be reading this book called Mighty Millie Novak," a friend of mine wrote it, Roller Derby Queer, and I'm like, "Can she please be on the show?"
I know. So like, just so people know, this was a book that I originally sold Liz, who I know from our Slack, where we are like debut authors and those of us on submission and all this stuff. I wanted Liz on my show, and then when Jen found out that I had this, she's like, "You are not hogging the queer roller derby book. You were bringing it."
I was like, "Queer roller derby,"
Fine.
and Allison's like, "It's also YA," and I'm like, "Queer YA."
Please bring it on the show. So here we are.
Here we are. I bullied Allison into. She's like, "Well, I'm going to have to change my show then." I'm like, "You're going to have to."
It was fine. And honestly, my show is supposed to be like romance and speculative fiction.
Oh,
and
okay.
there is like a romance element to it, but
yeah,
it isn't
but it's
really
not the whole
romance.
thing. Yeah.
So
the whole thing.
I was kind of twisting to shove you on there anyway, because I'm like, it's YA, and we don't do a lot of YA on our show, but we have always made exceptions for books we really wanted to read. So
I know. I feel like the last time we had YA on the show was my friend Alex Richards. And again, that was like somebody that I was like, I love Alex's work.
Well, and I think we have a niche for the YA contemporary, which gets overlooked because it feels like so much YA is the like this romantic-y stuff. And this book, and Liz, I want you to tell us about it, but this book is one of the most relatable real books. And first off, I'm 46, so I shouldn't be relating to any of this anymore because I'm old. But it actually feels
I was like
grounded.
embarrassed for half of this because I'm like, God, shut up, Mighty. You don't pull a Jennifer.
But it's the kind of grounded fiction that so often I feel gets crowded out by all the unrealistic stuff because no one, like, she's joining roller derby. She's not going off.
She's not fighting a dragon.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
No.
She's not a chosen one. She's not,
she's kind of chosen.
Not polite. I mean,
she was chosen for the team.
Well, yeah. But
so Liz, what was your inspiration for this? Tell us a little bit about yourself. And you aren't wearing your helmet, but you actually do this stuff?
I'm not. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I was telling somebody recently, it took me 9 years from going to derby games and admiring them to actually joining. And then it took me another 9 years from joining to having a book published about the sport. So I guess that's how it went. Yeah.
It's a 9-year cycle.
Apparently, yeah. I don't know what happens 9 years from now. Maybe
you turn into a cicada.
Sure.
You start your own rink. I don't know, like your own league or
that would be great. Yeah, Madison Roller Derby needs a new home. Yes, maybe that's what'll happen in 9 years. I'll
take it.
Fabulously wealthy, and I buy a rink for us.
I'm good.
And then I'm queen of roller derby.
Queen of roller derby. You replace the helmet with a crown.
Yeah,
that's
one on top of the other.
Yeah.
That's
I know. I was like
wobbling, but
very like, oh, we have to make sure to show the right type of gear on the cover. We need to make sure that the wrist guards look like this. We need to make sure that the helmet is fitting right and all this stuff. So right type of skates.
I'll say the only thing I really knew about roller derby was that, like, frankly, the girls are so hot. I like the outfits. I like the names. I'm such a baby. I would never do it because I'm scared of getting like elbowed in the face.
Mostly you don't, though, you know.
But like you said, mostly.
It's that mostly part.
Okay,
where it's like,
up until like a month ago, I would have said you don't get elbowed in the face, but there was an incident at an out of town game, and I did get elbowed in the face. Well, real hard, and I like bled my mouth guard a bunch.
So
but,
I elbowed my husband, my partner, who's also my dance partner, in the face doing a turn in ballroom dancing once, and he like started gushing blood like we're on the competition floor, and I'm like,
oh my god,
I don't know what to do.
You don't do real super well with blood and things like that.
No, I mean, but luckily in ballroom dance, you're not even really looking at the partner. You're over here.
Did you keep dancing while he was bleeding?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He's tough. He's Russian and he's tough.
He's gonna hear this and be like, I am tough.
Don't give me. I won't.
But not roller derby tough.
I don't want it to go to his head.
I mean, they stopped playing when I took the elbow to the face. I did not continue. Yeah, I mean, I fell to the ground and didn't get up, and they had
like, that sounds much more dramatic than what happened to us.
It was not good. It was like, this is why we wore the mouth guards, because if we didn't, I probably would have had messed up teeth. Like, it would have been bad. Yeah. So, but it's okay. We wear mouth guards. That's what they're for.
So tell our viewers a little bit about Mighty Millie Novak, the girl, the book.
Yeah. So
the way of life.
I've been describing it as my queer roller derby YA as a shorthand, and I feel like, I mean, yeah, that's it. Millie is 15 going on 16. She is very lonely. She is very socially awkward. She's super anxious. She's homeschooled. She's been homeschooled since 6th grade because she was bullied and wanted to stop going to regular public school. And so now she's 15. Her brother, who she was close to, has moved out and gone away to college. Her parents, who've been fighting her whole life, are finally getting divorced. She's very lonely, and she's joined roller derby a few months before the book starts. And so she was like in the kind of what we call the skater tots in the book.
The skater tots. That was like, I just have to stop you because there are so many amazing names in all of this stuff. Yes. But I was just laughing so hard at the skater tots. And I think that's probably why I fed my family tater tots like one of the nights. And it didn't go with the dinner at all. I'm like, I understand this doesn't work with the dinner, but tater tots, and they're just
that's an interesting effect I'm having on people's lives.
Yeah, the potato consumption is going up.
Yes,
I support that.
I haven't had anybody have pineapple, but with pineapple,
I don't know if tater tots and pineapple really go together. What about pumpkin?
That'll happen anyway because Jennifer finally got fall weather, so everybody's doing
for a day now
stuff. Yeah, so I feel like we can all have some more pumpkin things and be like, for pumpkin.
Yeah.
Or maybe not.
It
kind of depends on the
don't
day.
Eat stork. Yeah, just don't eat any storks.
That's not a food item.
That's not something I was kind of going through in my head. Are there others? And then I was like, ooh, no. Yeah.
Like, let's just stop there.
But any all the puns in the book, I credit to my fellow skaters in Madison Roller Derby. I stole so much from them. I mean, they knew, I was asking for ideas because everybody, it's like you come up with your own name, but then you get other ideas. And so I was like, hey, I'm working on a draft of this roller derby novel. If you've got ideas for team names, for skater names, for anything, let me know.
Tournament names.
Yeah. For tournament names.
Yeah.
I even love it. There was an Anna Green Gables pun in this. Yes. I was like, you're combining everything I love. Potatoes, Anna Green Gables.
I think I only came up with one derby name in the whole book because I was just like, it wasn't Millie's. No, it was it was Impaler Swift, I think, is
I
the
just
only
love
one I
that
came up
name.
with
Yeah.
myself. I think every other one, I just was like, I shall go to my list and I will choose what I like.
So what is your roller derby name?
My roller derby name is Antimatter, AUNTIE matter, because I teach physics and I have nephews. So
How is that
I
so
love
crazy?
that.
I love that.
I just like brainstormed physics terms that I could turn into a pun. It's not especially badass as derby names go, but I'm okay with that. I like it. Yeah.
Or is it
works.
more badass? I mean,
I
antimatter.
mean, I guess technically, if I meet regular matter, it's annihilated. So
yeah, which is everybody
which
else.
is everything.
Yeah, so I guess that's true. That's all of my opponents. So
well, and Elisa wants to know what's the worst injury you've gotten while doing roller derby. Was it that elbow, or was there worse?
It was worse. It was worse.
Maybe don't tell Jennifer. Jennifer, take your earbuds out.
No, it's nothing. It's nothing.
She turned into a crab.
Yeah.
Sorry, crabs are my big fear, so that's why I had to say it. And now Allison's dying. The only time I've ever had to take my earbuds out during a show was during a crab incident, which so she said, take your earbuds out. I'm like, uh-oh.
Oh, wow.
And I was gonna spit Diet Pepsi all over my computer, so I had to get it back. Okay, I'm fine now.
We're professional.
So we're not professional. That's all right.
So, I have a podcast with my sister, and I know it. Like, I get the vibe. I understand. We're also not professional. Yeah.
What was the worst injury? And it wasn't just an elbow.
It wasn't the elbow. No, I broke my ankle my rookie year. Right at the end of my rookie year. Yeah. It was, I mean, I will say this. I was very tired and I shouldn't have gone to practice. I hadn't had a lot of sleep and I came late and I kind of jumped in right into a drill when I wasn't fully warmed up and I broke my ankle. And so, you know, I think that probably had I been smarter, I could have prevented that.
Maybe. Or, like I said, we were talking before the show and a friend of mine broke her ankle going skating with her kids when another kid came up behind her and knocked her over. So you might not have been able to avoid it.
I mean, like, I think it, like one of the very first things you learn is how to fall safely. And so that really helps, that training, so that sort of kicks in automatically, which is great when you're on skates and wearing your protective gear. But I remember once I was like walking out of a restaurant from picking up Thai food and I tripped on the curb. And so I went to fall, and we're trained because we're wearing like big giant knee pads and wrist guards. We're trained to, you know, fall forward and slide. And I did that onto the concrete and was like, oh no. And now my Thai food is gone and things are very
which
bad.
Is the most tragic part of that entire story.
Yeah.
So
that's the worst incident. No. But no, the ankle is probably the worst one.
Well, yeah, and it's like the training doesn't work if you're not in that gear. Like,
there's no sliding on the concrete.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I think most people do not break their ankles. But I mean, there's a risk of injury though. Like there is. It's a contact sport. So, you know, I'm okay with it. I'm at a point in my life where like I'm comfortable at that level of risk. And that said, it's one broken bone and I've been playing since 2015. So, you know, 9 years.
Yeah, 9 years. So at what point in this
that did contain the pandemic. So we didn't play then, but you know, besides that.
At what point after you started playing roller derby did you get the idea for this book?
Probably about 4 years after I started playing. And I'd been in the league for a while. Everything was sort of, it felt like home. It felt like second nature. Maybe also because shortly after I joined, maybe a year or two after I joined, I was working on this middle grade book that I like queried to death and I rewrote to death and I just like would not give up on it. I mean, certainly other people seem to. I don't know. So, I mean,
been there.
It was one of those.
I'm sorry, Allison, and I had to cackle at that.
You know,
like,
I mean, like, I was like, this is the one that I'll get an agent, it'll get published. And it wasn't. But I used a lot of energy on that book. And then sometime in 2019, I just kind of had the idea kind of floating around, oh, I should write a book about roller derby. And I kind of envisioned it as like having like maybe multiple points of view of different people on the team. And I kind of saw Millie as like one of them. And then the more I thought about her, the more I kind of zoomed in and kind of saw her as the main character. And then I actually didn't start writing it until 2020 when my league was not skating. And so I really missed skating. I missed my teammates and the camaraderie and the physicality and like, you know, I missed this sport and I was just, you know, with lockdown, I'm like, I didn't have the sort of job where I was required to be out of the house, which is lucky, but also I was very lonely. And, you know, I'm just like in my house crying and attempting to do yoga and crying and swearing. And so I was, you know, thinking about my league a lot. And I think it was, I didn't think about it at the time, but other people have pointed out, like, Millie is so lonely at the start of this book, and that maybe makes some sense given how lonely I was during lockdown. And I mean, and I live with my husband. It wasn't like I was alone, but it's still to go, you know, you were there, you know, I mean, you were,
yeah, we were all there.
Yeah.
And I think especially, like, because I understood, like, because I'm a professional ballroom dance teacher. That was my job. My students were my friends. So it went from 6 days a week dancing with all these people to, well, now I don't have a career, and B, I'm like trapped in this house. But it was like, it was such an experience that I feel like we all went through. And maybe that's why Millie felt so fresh to me. Like, her loneliness still felt very, like, I was 15 again.
Yeah.
Plus the whole, like, being bullied in 6th grade. I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I could have been homeschooled.
Were any of us not? And seriously, I feel like the whole idea of can we be homeschooled was not really an option when I was younger. First off, my mom was in education, so she's like, no, I'm at school.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But yeah, like, I feel like between late elementary and junior high, for those of us who are the weird girls, that time is just
6th and 7th grade are brutal.
Brutal.
5th and 8th grade, worst.
Yeah, I never wanted to be homeschooled. I don't know if it didn't occur to me or if I just didn't want to or whatever. And like, by the time I got to high school, I was very happy and I had like a lot of friends, and it's just, you know, like the intensity is gone. There's still like this stratifying of these are the cool kids or whatever, but they're not, they have their own stuff going on, and they're not,
they don't
really,
bother
like,
you
focused on bullying you. They have to like be mean to each other. I'm not really sure. Right.
Yeah, so I think those are the rules. Like, they're busy with the with
no,
whatever.
because if they bullied you, that would be acknowledging you existed, and they don't have time for that.
Yeah. I'm just over here doing my weird thing.
And that's like, once you get to high school, there's usually, it's a bigger school, there's more weirdos, and you can find your tribe.
Yeah.
Like, by the time I was 15, I was like, I can do this.
Yeah.
But
since
10, 11, 12, and 13.
Yeah, no.
6th grade, 7th grade, brutal. I don't know.
Yeah, and so here Millie has, like, she's homeschooled. Her parents have gone into their separate directions. Her brother's gone, and so, like, she's like, this is it. This is all I have. And yet her parents don't really want her to do it because I think they think it's as dangerous as Jennifer thinks it is, as far as like her getting hurt and all this stuff. And I loved, Jennifer, where's your inhaler? I love that you gave her an inhaler. Like, you know, she might not be able to breathe this time. I love it. She didn't let ass.
I got like so much anxiety every time she's like, oh wait, my inhaler. I'm like, that should be on you at all times. And when she was like,
she's kind of such a mess that she does not have like her act together enough to keep her inhaler with her, you know? So
I know when she was like, this is a mild spoiler, but when she's like, does anybody here have an inhaler? I'm like,
I don't have yours, child.
I've done that. So I'm like, that's me.
I did that in 8th grade, climbing a mountain with my class. All of a sudden, I'm like, I don't have my inhaler.
Oh God!
I can't breathe.
And so then they had to like do an announcement, like shout down the mountain, does anybody have an inhaler for Jennifer? And they're all like, oh, her. Like,
My husband and I have taken students to Europe for like a short-term study abroad thing, college kids, and we like ran to catch a bus once, and one girl was like, oh, I should have brought my inhaler, and we're like, oh, did you leave it in the hotel? And she's like, no, I left it in the US. And we were like, oh, okay.
That's not good. And you know, that's a little worrisome.
You have to tape it to your phone so you know.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but also just when there were times when we described a pumpkin's car, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that was my car for the long time too, with like all this stuff. And I'm like, let's not talk about some of the things found in my car and things that happened because things are left in the car. But these characters were all so relatable, and I feel like I was either knew them or was them or combinations of them. Yeah. And I think that gets back to the whole, like, you know, there's no chosen one here. These are all flawed but real people. And even the way they talk about each other and to each other, and like kind of the underhanded, not intentionally cattiness, but like, that person again. And it's like, oh, I've been there. I've lived that.
Yeah. And I feel like too, and I don't know if you have any plans for this, like this could be a series, like, because I feel like all of these characters, I would love to take like, oh, now it's Gable's story, or I love Gables.
Well,
obviously,
obviously.
People love Gables. It's been so interesting to see people's reaction and like who they love and what they expect and everything. And like, I've just loved to see how much people like Gables. It makes me really happy because she's not like, one of the main characters. I didn't think about like, it's not like whether or not they like Millie or something. Like, it's like she's there and she's important, but she's not one of the like top ones. And so I love that like she stands out and people have opinions about her. And and they like her. Yeah.
She's like that positive, but also not Mary Sunshine kind of character, because she's supportive, but she also won't take any crap. But I love how, I don't want to say this because this might sound bad to the characters. She's the smart one because she's telling everybody else what to do. So she's seeing these strategies. So I just would stop and say, I've seen Harley Quinn do roller derby. I know it exists as a sport. I swear I've seen other shows like that are procedurals. They always end up having a roller derby episode because it's just fun.
Yeah. But Lucifer had a roller derby episode, and I was like, "Oh, Lucifer, you guys didn't talk to one skater, did you?
No,
when you wrote this."
They're like, "This is how it is, right? It's fine. It's fine. What is your desire to figure out roller derby? Can you try this again?" But I learned so much, and I mean, I'm not a sports person really. I was a swimmer, so I'm like, I was looking.
Then you're a sports person, I think. If you were a swimmer,
I was looking for sports bras, and all I was finding is a bunch of old Speedos. So like, what are the rules of swimming? You swim. So it's not like one of those things where there are all these.
No, I think there's probably more rules than just you swim, and also, there
are certain things about.
It's different than a team sport, though. I guess like it's not like you're.
It is team when you're doing a medley relay.
Oh, okay, that's a good point.
Yeah, so you're an athlete.
Yeah. I was an athlete a very long time ago, but I learned so much about how roller derby works, and I love how you managed to do it in a way that I never felt like I was being like, and here's how roller derby works.
Here's the chapter that's the exposition that explains the game.
Yeah.
Honestly, I didn't even know there were points until.
What did you think the game was? Just push them all over, and whoever's left.
I thought it was like just pushing and like the coolest outfits I've ever seen.
Yes.
I mean, that's what I like about it, is that it is the coolest outfits you've ever seen, and it's a legit sport. That it's both. It's not like,
I guess I figured there had to be points,
but there's a lot of showy stuff.
I didn't think about people playing certain positions, and like,
I mean, like,
I didn't know there were positions.
If you just randomly look at it, and it can, and until you break it down a little bit, it can look a little opaque when you're watching. Once you start looking at the helmet covers, then you can. It's like, oh, the star. Watch them score the points, whatever. But like. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad to hear that, because I had a lot of people read it, but it was important to me that it didn't either lose people who didn't already know the sport, or that it didn't have that exposition dump, like you said, with like, I don't know, like I used to read the Babysitters Club when I was a kid, and there's always like chapter 2 where they lay out each character's personality and how the club structure works, and you just skip it. Yeah, I mean, I love her, but I also think like I was trying to resist the temptation to like rely on having like a thing in the back of the book that explains all the rules that people can refer to, because who wants to do that? So I just kind of tried to. I wanted to. Right. Yeah, exactly.
That takes you out. But the way you did it with explaining, like, okay, what are they doing? Okay, she's trying out for it, and then okay, so speed's important, but not everybody has the same strength, and okay, so some things lend to certain positions more than others, and she's then asked to be a position, the jammer, and like, what kind of a cool name is that? Like, I'm the jammer. That's like kind of the one that's like the quarterback in many ways. It's the position people think they want, but maybe that isn't the best position. And even ideas about like, well, why is that person in that position? Because they're so good. Shouldn't they have the big star on their helmet and all of that? And the way you handled it was never all a dump, and it was never like, here, learn it bit by bit, because you're dealing all with characters who know it. So it wouldn't make sense to be like, hey, let's tell Millie about it, because she's not one of them scared.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I kind of like, I tried to think about starting with something super easy to grasp, like, can you skate this many laps in this many minutes? And then ease into it conceptually, and then try to like integrate things where maybe she's talking to her parents or her brother who don't know the sport as well, where I can, in a more natural seeming way, bring in some stuff. So I'm glad that worked.
It really did, because I'm definitely not a sports person. I guess unless you count dance as a sport.
I do.
I mean, I think you should. It's physical, it's competitive.
Well, I feel like, but I no longer compete anymore, and the competition is what I hated about dance.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah.
So like I definitely would consider dancers, and especially me, I would consider myself kind of an athlete, a dance athlete, but I don't consider it a sport, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so.
I did when I was competing. It was definitely more of a sport then, but now it's art. Or
it's at that boundary or both or whatever.
Yeah, it really is.
And plus now I'm just like too old to compete.
Well, but I was going to say anything that requires physical coordination towards a goal, and then you're being either judged or, because like gymnastics is clearly a sport, right? Yeah. And dance is one step away from gymnastics in terms of coordinated movements that are being judged. So one is the other one is.
I mean, I was listening to someone explain that they think that it was on a different podcast. Someone was talking about that competitive eating should be considered a sport because you train for it,
you
and
do
it
use
is
your
physical.
stomach muscles.
Yeah, they're like, you use your body. You can have physical advantages based on your physique and whatever you train. There's certain skills to learn. And I was like laughing at first, and by the end I was like, oh my God, I think they're right. I think
it increases your heart rate.
Yeah,
you can.
Yeah, I guess the question is, and then this gets into
crowd is cheering you
sports.
on.
Well, the idea of, if you're supposed to be good in it, are you in top physical condition? Because someone like who is a weightlifter, maybe they're really bulky. Maybe that's not great for all of their joints or muscles, but they're lifting something up. And then I'm thinking, okay, sumo wrestlers, they are very big, and some people might go, that might not be healthy, but that's part of their sport. And I'm just thinking, I'm not sure how good it is to eat 100 hot dogs in a couple minutes. It feels like a bad idea.
I mean, I think doing something. I mean, a lot of athletes get injured, you could say, so therefore it's not good for you. I think that maybe it's about looking at, well, what do we even mean by peak physical condition? Like there's different ways to look at that. Like, and I tend to think like, well, if you're moving, it's good. And I'm not sure about the competitive eating question. Maybe we'll put that aside. But like the rest of it, like
competitive eating is good for your mental health. Like, what if the only thing that brings you happiness is eating a ton of hot dogs?
Yeah, I mean,
that person could be much happier than a ballroom dancer.
Like, I could stick to just going to the gym and lifting weights and jogging outside or something, and I would have fewer risks of like, broken bone or concussion or something like that. But it does so much for me. Yeah, like the whole reason I managed to go to the gym, well, partially so I can lift my dog, because he's a big guy and I want to be able to.
How big is your dog?
He's only like 60 pounds now. I have a 3-legged greyhound, and so he's my little buddy. And yeah, that's Archer. And so I had for a while been like, I need to be able to lift Archer. So when he gets old, I can help him. And then last year he lost his leg, and I was like, good thing I've been lifting weights. I'm ready for this. So he's totally fine now, except he can't quite figure out going upstairs. So I still lift him up. So he's my training for additional training. Yeah, my boy.
Well, and last time I was in physical therapy, the big thing for me is I have children that often need to be carried that are bigger than most kids who need to be carried because they are past the age where most children need to be carried, but for various reasons I need to carry them. So it's like, okay, what do I need to do? So I feel
that the dog and roller derby are the only reasons that I do manage to go to the gym with any regularity.
Now I want to see dogs and roller derby. Go on.
I mean, I've thought before, like we were like out at brunch. My husband does an on skates ref, and me and my teammates were like, I'm like, all right, I'm going to message him and ask, is there anything in the rules that would prevent us from fielding a dog theoretically? And if so, if not, what position do you think different breeds would play? And so we were like, is it like the Air Bud idea? Like there's nothing in the rules that says a greyhound can't be the jammer. Roller derby. Yeah.
I mean, I would say probably a 4-legged greyhound would be a pretty good jammer.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
could
especially because like you're not allowed to hit them in the head or in the back of the spine. So
and they're all spine.
That's all they are.
Exactly. Yeah.
Then again, can a dog skate? Has anybody put dogs on skates? Because I feel like
they have.
Have you put dogs on skates?
Dogs can surf.
So they can surf. They can skateboard.
Yeah.
That's different than back and forth movements of their things. So they're just like paws down and
one of those smart breeds could do it. Maybe not greyhounds, but
I was
like
gonna say not like my dog could not do it.
Yeah, no.
But I'm sure like a
Jack
working
Russell could. A Jack Russell.
Yeah, or like
a border
collie. Yeah.
Yeah, no, a smart
They'd be
dog
like
could.
Gables. They'd be like the pivot, or they'd be like, real track awareness,
Barking.
Exactly.
Any of the shepherding dogs are like moving people along. I can see them doing it.
But definitely not Lord Tubby. Lord Tubby could not be a roller derby.
No, he didn't even like swimming. Okay, I saw pictures. He was not a fan of that.
He hated that. And the next day we put him back in, but like held him kind of above the water. And his little paws were just going, and he just looked miserable. So he's supposedly by breed a pirate dog.
Wait, they're pirate dogs? A Katanga Tuliar is
it's a Madagascar pirate dog.
What?
But they were bred to be the clowns of the sea, to stay on the boats and be silly and keep people's spirits up. But when we heard pirate dog, we were like, he's gonna love the water.
Yeah. Well, okay, so Elisa wants to know, do you ever bring your roller derby experience into the classroom to explain physics to your
students? That's a really good question. Here we're like, should dogs play roller derby?
Yeah, well,
and Elisa's like with a good question.
Elisa is a teacher, so this is where her brain goes. I get that. Not a teacher. I want to see dogs on skates.
I bring my dogs, not literally, but the idea of my dogs into the classroom, but I also do bring roller derby in. Some semesters, just depending on my schedule and other people's schedules, I'll have somebody come down, like I have a friend from my league come to where I teach, and we'll both be on skates and we'll like hit each other and do some demonstrations, because it's, and I like to use it in a lot of different problems because it's great for physics, because like, it obviously has so many applications of different concepts in physics, but it's also like, it's not as a super familiar sport. So like a lot of books will have like examples with like football or something. And some of my students know football really, really well, and others don't at all. Whereas roller derby sort of levels the playing field, so to speak, right? And that it's not as familiar, but it has all of these great applications. And the other thing is that if you're on wheels, then if you are rolling, if you're not trying to stop and, turn your foot perpendicular, is pretty low friction. And so that's great for problems with like momentum conservation. If you talk about pushing a teammate to give them a whip or something, then you can look at how momentum is conserved. And I've also done some physics of roller derby outreach for like Girl Scout troops and other groups. So yeah, it absolutely, it's just like perfect application of that. So
well, and I love that you said not everybody's familiar with certain sports, because like my husband's pet peeve is he is not a sport guy. He's like, I do not watch the sport, and so many things, especially things aimed at men, are always using sports analogies, and he's like, I have no idea what that even means, and I don't know how this works. And I remember saying something to him where it was like, well, this and this and this, and he's like, I don't understand. I'm like, okay, can I break it down for you? Because I understand this sport and I'll explain it to you. And yes, it was a good metaphor, but if the whole thing goes over your head, you lose it. So having visual there, but then also being like, okay, we're explaining this to everybody. So everybody's on kind of the same new page, as opposed to
exactly.
And I don't need more football metaphors. So enough.
Yeah. And I mean, I have to say there's so much with like organized sports, especially in schools, that there's, I don't want to say bad connotations, but you can be that person who was bullied as a kid. And then you're like, I'm automatically going to quote unquote hate all football players and hate the game and hate all of this. And then somebody comes in with a football metaphor and you're just like, I'm shutting down.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I've never heard somebody say, you know who I hate? Roller derby.
Nobody hates roller derby.
I hate the outfits and the cool nicknames.
Other than possibly Millie's parents, who are protective. And I get that. And I loved how, and getting into the whole like, well, what is a sport? How she's like, I'm not an athlete. And they're like, you are an athlete. And looking at somebody like Stork, who already was involved in other sports, and going, well, of course, because she's an athlete, and going, okay, you guys all are. And yes, you kind of have to do these other things like work out. And that was the thing that I used to remember hating dry workouts. Because like I said, I was a swimmer and I hated those. I'm like, I do this so that I don't have to run around the gym, because I have sports induced asthma, which never happens when I swim, but you make me run one lap and I'm dead. So,
Yeah.
Well, and there was no roller derby option for me or my friends when I was in high school, and I would have loved it. I was not. I was a rollerblader because, like, first off, child of the '90s in terms of high school, we always were roller skating.
And I feel like you have to rollerblade, like in California.
It is required.
It's a law.
Yeah. It was that or dry.
It was not a law in New Hampshire.
No, and the snow would have made it a little bit more difficult, and some of the roads that you can't even drive on. I'm like, you don't have enough pavement there. But we went everywhere on rollerblades, and I still remember there was a time a guy I was dating, we were rollerblading, and a hill like the hill that in your book, and I'm just like waiting for Millie to do what I did, which is you're going too fast, and you're like, I'm going to go into traffic. I am going to die, and I'm going to go into traffic. And I remember running off the road into grass and doing a full flip because my momentum was so high.
Oh man,
head over heels, and I went down hard. I was not wearing. That helmet I was wearing. First helmet I've ever worn.
It's like, so scary.
Probably was, but none of us ever wore helmets. I didn't have knee pads. I didn't have none of that. Like, as a parent, all my kids have like, here's all your stuff. Here's all your stuff. And for me, when I was going across town into movie theaters and Baskin Robbins while wearing these skates, we just didn't take them off. And if they made us take them off, just, okay, we're going to carry them and go sit and watch the cheap matinee because it's middle of summer. There's nothing else for us to do. So
I love that.
So I was just having a hard time the whole time going, she's not on rollerblades. She's on for like a quad skate,
quads.
Right?
Yeah.
And doing all this, I'm guessing there's more stability with a quad skate, but
yeah, because you can stand still, like and just be level. Yeah,
but I know how to T-stop and all that from being able to do that and dragging yours along and all that, and knowing all the gear from that. Going, I'm too old for roller derby now. I'm not joining it.
No,
but Elisa also wants to know what our roller derby names would be. And she wants to know what Archer's roller derby name would be.
I've come up with a few derby names for him. God, what were they?
I love it.
I mean, obviously.
You're like, obviously.
But I can't remember.
I feel like there's got to be a bad like triangle or tripod pun for him because he's only got
the definitely. Yeah. I mean, like, I created a code name for him for a while so that I could talk about him. It never really stuck, but like I was like, then we can talk about him without him knowing. And I was just gonna call him Sagittarius because that's the Archer is the
but also there's a lot of serial killers that are Sagittarius.
Really?
There's the Leo.
Leos are mostly not serial killers because we are too self-involved.
That's true. Like, we don't have time to figure out how to
we are looking at our hair.
I don't actually know astrology at all. I just knew that Sagittarius is the Archer. So I did not know that. Maybe, I mean,
not as bad as like a Scorpio.
He's never even killed like, I'm a Scorpio. Are we, is that another serial killer sign?
I think so. No, I can't remember. No, Scorpios are just, but they're intense. But that makes sense because you're a roller derby.
I mean, I'm intense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm on the cusp.
Should my roller derby name be Downtown Alley?
Yours or mine? Because I'm Alley.
I know, but I wanted to change my burlesque name to Downtown Alley, but I never did. So now I'm like,
you already have like a burlesque name, and what's the difference between a burlesque name and a roller derby?
I feel like there's a lot of overlap.
Like
there is, but my burlesque name was like too French and not fun.
Yeah, there's like it's supposed to be sexy and kind of, on the nose humor with the burlesque. And shouldn't strike fear in the heart of your opponents the way, like, you need that. Yeah.
Do you have opponents in burlesque? Maybe.
I don't know. No, and I don't think I have one. I mean, I barely even had, like, people would call me Alley Cat when I was little for soccer, but that was about it. And I tried to avoid
skated
that.
with a tornado alley.
I like that.
That's good.
So, yeah.
I like that. Take them all down. But I think also I'm not fast enough to be a jammer, and I'm not enough of a roadblock because I'm not very tall or even very like wide in the shoulders to be one of the blockers. But I kind of would rather be the blocker.
There are small blockers. There are small blockers. Blockers don't have to be
on
big.
The merch table.
You're just over there selling stuff.
Just selling stuff.
I got a hoodie.
That's wearing the outfit.
To volunteer at the merch table eventually. So you can do a shift there, and then you can skate. But no, I mean, that's the thing is like different body types all have different advantages. So like there are tiny speedy jammers, and then there are jammers where I see them coming and I'm just like, oh shit, like they're gonna run me over, you know, like they're like strong and pushy, and you're just like, you know. And then there's blockers who are big and blockers who are small, and sometimes being tall is an advantage as a blocker because you can, you know, get your legs around people and whatever, but also being short can be an advantage because you're automatically lower and you can kind of stop people at their center
like a fire hydrant.
And like, as I said about Millie, yeah,
like a fire hydrant.
A fire hydrant.
I was like, that's my body type.
And I mean, like, even like if you're like tiny and skinny and stuff, you can still be a blocker. Like, I can think of some blockers I've known with that. Like, either way, like, I'm just trying to make the point that, like, no matter what your body looks like, there's going to be some advantage to whatever position you're interested in. It just will be different advantages. And so it's nice to have a mix of people, you know, like
all body types come and do it. And I mean, Jen might be at the merch table. My likely position is just spilling the slushy that ends up being the slushy steak. I'm probably eating something because that's like,
I'll be next door at the competitive eating contest.
A number of things that I know you can't eat.
I know, it'd be like a giant plate of broccoli.
Like they would first off have to bring out the vegan hot dogs for you because you don't eat hot dogs. You're a vegetarian. You would already.
I'm also vegetarian. I'm also vegetarian. Yeah.
No.
Like, so, Elizabeth, what are you working on now?
So I have a few different things going on. I have an R&R for another YA one that I'm gonna be working on, and then I have a adult thriller that's on sub right now that my agent is sending out a round of this week. And then I'm just started working on another adult thriller. So it's not very roller derby adjacent. It's not like YA contemporary, but like I just really like thrillers. I read a lot of them. And then I have other ideas for other YA novels. But I think it's like, I don't know if it's because it's September and it's starting to feel spookier or what, but I'm just like, I have ideas for another thriller. So that's what I just started working on.
We're spooky year round. So, I mean, we're like,
I
yes.
saw that you had Carol Goodman on your podcast. And I was like,
her last book is so good.
I haven't read the newest one yet. I'm so excited. I read pretty much all of them. I think I'm obsessed with Carol Goodman. So I was like, Carol Goodman on the same podcast as me. Oh my God.
Yes.
Like,
no, we love Carol.
Her.
And we tend to do, because Allison has her spin-off show that is like romance and sci-fi and fantasy. So we tend to do, and I'm horror. So we do a lot of horror, but we also do a lot of thrillers because I'm kind of thriller adjacent.
Like crime adjacent.
Crime adjacent.
Like so, like when we're looking at where people are in like all the conventions and stuff, there are certain times when my page is nothing but everybody at something and me being very sad that I didn't get to go because I feel like all the pictures are people we've had on our show together and all this stuff. And then one of them announces they have COVID and then I watch that too. So I'm like, God. So that's going to be the thing for a while too. Hopefully that's like wrapping up and we can move away from some of that. But I wanted to bring up, and hopefully you aren't like, we aren't talking about this because you even posted about it that your agent now is not one of the agents you started with. And during the querying process, you got some not very kind responses from certain people about the fact this was like a queer YA book, and that actually got you your agent because a lot of people were like, hello, yeah, we do want that. Thank you very much.
It was a weird, wild weekend. It was all in like, it was like a Thursday night to a Sunday. But no, so I did have another agent prior to Allie. Allie is my current agent.
Downtown Allie is your Tornado Allie is your agent?
I think my agent, Allie Helgers, has said if she played Derby, her name would be Punky Bruiser, I think is what she said, which I think is great. Too. Yeah. But yeah, so she's my second agent. I had another agent. She's fine. We weren't right for each other. I chose to leave. I was with her for maybe 9 months. And
because there were a lot of us in our Slack that moved to the back in the query trenches. And I think we were about the same time. Yeah. We jumped by my first one and then looking for my second one. So like that all happened. And then you got this nonsense.
Yeah, it was. So, okay. I left my former agent in summer of 21. Mm-hmm. did some edits, whatever, went back into the query trenches that fall. And then it was February of 22. I had queried this agent who asked for apropos of nothing. He needed a physical printout of the full mailed to him, which I just felt like, seriously?
How old
2022?
I was just about to say, and
I don't think he's that old.
I don't think
he's that old. An actual turtle?
Yeah, I don't think he's that old. I don't know for official, but I mean, he's not, I don't know, he's not 130, like, you know, so yeah. Anyway, so regardless, that's just me being petty. Yeah, so he rejected me because he said he found out I was married to a man. It had like a smack of, I discovered it. Oh, you know, like as if you found my shameful secret, my husband that I own a business with and post about online. Like,
you did such a terrible job.
Well, there is that horrible like bisexual erasure where it's just like, you can't be a bisexual woman if you're married or in a straight presenting relationship.
I just felt like, didn't we do this with Becky Albertalli like 2 years prior to this or whatever, when like people were like, she can't write Love Simon, and she felt all this pressure to come out as bi, and it was like really shitty, and people were like, this is shitty, we shouldn't do this. And then he was like, oh, it's not that I care, it's just that it won't sell. I can't sell this book because of this. Editors will not buy a book where if you're married to a man. And I was like, I don't think that's true.
I don't think that's true. That's
not true.
No. And I was not that calm when I read his rejection, because, you know, like, you don't know where, like, it's not like I knew where things were going to happen. So I was like, I'm going to go on Twitter because that's what you do, and I'm going to post about it. And I was trying to
And also, that's a rejection that was not based on your work at all.
And that's what
that was 100% based on who you are.
Yeah, and it felt really, really bad. Yeah, because it wasn't about my work. It was weird, and he had this whole angle like he thought I'd like deceived him or something, and I don't know.
Oh my God, are you a fake gay?
One of them.
It was not cool.
There's so many of us.
Well, and it's just funny because it's like these people haven't heard of the concept of what being bisexual means.
I said that to him. Actually, because I know you shouldn't reply to rejections, but I did.
No, that one you replied to.
I'm human. Yeah, and he was like, "Well, it's not about that. It just won't sell." And so
then you should have brought it up. If you just thought if it wasn't going to sell, and if you thought that, you know, this isn't something that editors are interested in, then you just say no, thank you, and you step aside. But he made it personal.
No, thank you. That's not what the industry is looking for.
Him making it personal led to a lot of good things for me. So I'm like, you know, I tweeted about it, and I tried to like thread the needle of like being angry and posting about this, but also not being like, I'm not somebody who posts about every single high and low of the publishing experience, because I stay a little bit more private, like online. Like I'm like, here are some nice, good things that I'm going to share about, you know, or whatever. But it's not like I got a full request or whatever. Like I just didn't post that granularly, you know? And so I was like, I don't usually tweet about rejections. I don't usually tweet about requests.
But that one was bigger than you. And that's why you did it.
And so
who knows how many other authors are in positions where they're like, I feel, and I won't say who this applies to, but I have other authors who were getting asked like, gee, we're going to need to out your sexuality because your characters are this way or that way, and they may not be out to their family. And that's just like not okay that people are doing that. Like people should be able to write what books they are. And if it's something where it's like, maybe we don't like the treatment of how we're treating the LGBTQ plus community, and then we should look into whether this person's actually like secretly a hater and trying to do bad interpretations or bad representations. That's different. But just coming after you and being like, well, you're married to a man, so you couldn't possibly, it's like, dude.
Yeah, I mean, so I did have a lot of people then DM me and be like, who was it? I need to make sure I don't query him. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll tell you in DMs. And I mean, it's not any big name or anything like that, you know. I'll still tell people if they DM me, but you can email me.
Determine that his gender is male.
Yeah, So I just always want to be clear. It's not some big famous agent. So I kind of wanted to tweet to be like, hey, this happened. So if this happens to you, you're not the only one, but also this is not normal, because I had an agent already who knew I had a husband? And, you know, like, it was fine. Like, yeah, we parted ways, but it was just, it wasn't a right fit. It had nothing to do with that. You know, I'm like, this is not normal. The vast majority of agents are totally reasonable and cool and would not do this. So if this does happen to you, don't expect that. And I think it just went viral on like book Twitter levels of viral, like enough so that my stepdaughter knew about it separately and was like, hey, Liz, I heard you went viral. And she said that a friend of hers was like, I think your stepmom is viral. And she was like, uh-oh. And then was like, oh, I see. No, okay. Like, she's like, did she? Then no.
Did she say something bad?
She was like, what did she do? Yeah.
She's been canceled again.
Yeah. So it just kind of exploded. And I got a lot of really, really nice emails. And so like the whole thing became like a really positive experience because of all the like love and support I got from people. And it going viral led to the tweet being seen by Allie Helgers, my current agent. And so she DM'd me and said, hey, if you want to send it to me, send it to me. And I did. And I think I sent it to her on a Sunday morning, and Sunday night, she was like, I never read on Sundays. That's my day for my family, but I just read your book all day. Can we talk this week? And I was like, ah.
And you know what? Your book is absolutely one of those kinds of books where you can just buzz through it because it is so fun. And it's just like,
I started it yesterday.
I know.
Like, I will admit, I have 30 pages.
Yeah.
Right, well, and I was reminding her, I'm like, our show's not on Wednesday this month. She's like, because normally
I know. I'm like,
oh, gotcha. Yeah, I teach
coordinating differently.
Yeah.
My show's usually Tuesday, and we had originally set it for Tuesday, so it'll work for your scheduling, and Wednesday doesn't. But that gets back to like the whole who even Millie is, because one of the things that you make in this thing that I thought was really well handled is Millie likes girls. People know Millie likes girls. And it's part of the story that Millie likes girls, but it's not like she's coming out and what will her parents think and all this stuff. It's just accepted. And some of the people in the roller derby community are also like same-sex relationships, or, you know, some of them aren't, like, oh, she's got a boyfriend. Oh, she's broken up with her boyfriend again. But it wasn't like this thing. And then the way that she handles some of her crushes and relationships was totally relatable to anybody, regardless of, ooh, that person is, oh, they're a lesbian. Like, there was none of that. There was none of that. It was just, she's a 15-year-old with a crush. And you know what she acts like? A 15-year-old with a crush who doesn't always
which was like embarrassing and lovely and awful. Yeah. And I was like, again, I was like, Jennifer, just stop. My God,
stop
this
talking.
is like, stop talking.
I like have gotten back in touch with some old friends from like doing book tour stuff, and we were talking about something from high school, and I've saved every note ever given to me during high school, and I have them all. And so I was looking for some reference, and I started reading through them the other day, and I was just like, man, anybody who says Millie is unrealistically a mess or dramatic or makes terrible decisions should look at this box, like Exhibit 1. Oh my God, like the like.
It was so relatable, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm like, I should not be related to this. I'm 46 years old, but I still remember what it was like that.
Yeah.
And I think so much YA now is like, and I hate this because I have a 13, almost 14-year-old who I want her reading books like yours. I want her reading books that are relatable, not books that are written for adults, but put YA for some reason. And it's like, look, I want adults to be able to read YA. I don't want to be like this police officer saying, I'm sorry, you are too old for this section, but I still want it to be able to be real and relatable for those kids who are that age, who see themselves reflected, who got bullied or felt like they don't know how to make friends, or that was their like one only friend, and what are you going to do? Because that was like your one friend, or like the one person I had to talk to, and now the house is like super duper quiet and kind of awful here.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's room in YA for a range of stories, and it does seem like sometimes when we think about YA nowadays, it seems like sometimes when I read characters that are like 17, 18, I feel like they're so independent and they're so together and they're so mature. It's like, I feel like I'm reading about college kids more, but they happen to be in high school. And I feel like, and I do also think there's a big difference between 15 and 18, you know, which, hey, it's in the book. So, you know.
Yep. As you addressed.
Big difference. And I think that's part of it is like, I've always kind of marveled at the fact that the way age groups have been done in the literary industry is like, okay, there's like early readers and upper elementary, which is kind of middle grade, and then there's just YA, and it feels like there really needs to be the younger end YA, and then people kept trying to do this thing called NA, which is not applicable, but is new adult, and the idea of like kids. where you're going to put those college kids or the 18 to 22, and it all ends up being YA, and it just feels like, especially when you're having a kid look for books where they can see themselves represented, it's almost like you want a sticker, not saying you can't read it, but like the age of the protagonist is this. They are dealing with these kind of issues. Because I know my daughter, she's like, I don't have any interest in that kind of stuff yet. And there's a very narrow range of books that are even available now because it is skewing so adult, where it's like, yes, the character is 18 and a half. Also, they're the leader of a kingdom and have been so for 7 years. Like, that's not what this is.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it just, where kids at can vary so much. And I think there's a lot of time in which you want some of the romance and some of the teenage stuff, some of the like independence, growing, coming of age stuff that you don't necessarily see in middle grade, but you're already mature, like some in that like low, because like my book gets described as like lower YA, and I feel like that works, I've had some people be like, oh, it's more like middle grade, and I feel like no, it's not. Like, it's like, I think you're just forgetting how immature teenagers are. Please if you could read the notes you wrote at 15, my guess is
oh god, I would never. I'd be just die of mortification.
It was an experience. I was like, anytime, like, I think of the stupid things Millie did, and I think like and like in query letters, they talk about like, address why you're the author to write this book. And I feel like,
here's the box
of notes. About the stupid things that I did when I was in high school. So.
Yeah, and you can't send along the box of notes on a query letter.
Yeah.
I mean, you could send one.
One, like, this is what I was like. And so I'm dotting the hearts of the heart. It's not good. And so you're switching from that, and like you do kind of what I do, where you're like, this is my brain on this kind of book, and this is my brain on that kind of book. I am excited to read one of your thrillers because I have no idea what a non-Millie book for me would look like, but I feel like they better sell so I can buy one. I want to go do that. Yeah. So the R&R that you're doing is a thriller, or is that okay? All right.
Oh, so no. I'm sorry. The R&R is not a thriller. The R&R is YA.
Okay.
Is YA. And it is time travel based. So it's a teenage girl who has a physics internship who finds a way to go back to the 1960s and uses it to buy clothes to help her mom's struggling vintage clothing store. So she brings the clothes to the future.
Oh my God,
I
love
them. And then there's like a love triangle between her and a boy in the past, and her and a fellow intern. And so I'm working on that, and so we'll see about that. And then I have on sub, I have a thriller, and then I'm working on a brand new thriller. Like I have like 5,000 words, and I just,
very
I mean, I do feel like I just, kind of keep them separate in my brain. And like, I read a lot of YA contemporary, and then I read a lot of I read a lot of thrillers. I mean, like in practice, I read like a crazy amount of thrillers, like multiple a week, and so it's like, how can I not write one? But I do. Yeah, I know. And I love, given how many I've read, I love reading one where I'm like, I did not see that coming.
Yes.
That's when you're like, that's where you really enjoy them. Because I've read enough where I've seen somewhere I'm like, yes, and now this happens, and now this happens, because you feel the pattern. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's great when you get one where you go.
Yeah, I always think about, like, I don't know if did you guys watch The Office at all?
Oh, yes.
There's an episode where they're doing like a murder mystery party, and Dwight is explaining that it's never the person you most suspect, because that would be too obvious, but it's never the person you least suspect, because anyone would expect it to be that person. It's always the person you most medium suspect. And I always think about that when I read thrillers or when I write them. I'm like, it's the person you most medium suspect.
I love that.
And it is true. And I love that episode.
It's totally true.
It is true. It is true.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, you've been fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. Show us your book again.
One more time.
Yes. Mighty Millie Novak.
I'll put my helmet back on for that in here before I.
Put your helmet back on.
I'll get my
inhaler.
I cannot handle the fact that I'm not mirror, that a mirror image, I'm like, I try to move to the right and
I know. It's always, and I'm always like, how do I point to Jennifer?
Yeah.
I did it correct on the first time, and we've been doing the show for 4 years.
4 years it takes me to figure out that, and I'm going, okay, down is always down.
Down is
always down. I think if I tried to point right now, I feel like, is it going to be right?
Just point both ways, and then you're fine.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. Anyway, if
thank you so much.
Anybody, I'm Elizabeth H_WI on social media, but my website's been scrolling all around the bottom, so people can find me there too.
And people, when they click on the show, if they're looking on YouTube, if you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe to our channel. You'll see it in the show notes. You'll be able to always get the website from there, so you can go there.
Awesome.
But also, I don't feel like there's a lot of books called Mighty Millie Novak, so it's
there's zero. Yeah,
there's zero. Now there's one.
I did actually find a professional dancer named Millie Novak when Googling my own book. She seems nice. I sent her a message on Instagram. So
I love it.
You're in the book.
Yeah.
Oh, so thank you again, everyone. We will be back in a couple weeks. We are pre-taping an episode that's not going to come out until the end of September, but we do have upcoming guests that we're very excited about. So we will be back in a couple of weeks. Until then, bye.
And thank you again.